People, this week we've got Stacey Miller, a professional in the substance misuse sector.
Friends die from drugs. I'd seen people overdose in front of me. I'd almost overdosed. Things like that really stem what I want to do now with young people and just get them to recognise signs and recognise that actually their voice matters. I find the older you get, the harder it is to change your ways. And then your mental health issues are worse, your drug addiction's worse, your housing situation's worse, your relationships are worse. Massive trend at the moment is the reduction of alcohol. So last year I went to both festivals. It was the first time I'd been to festivals and had to queue at the bar. And I was like, what's going on here? And it's the rise of ketamine. Why do people get into it in the first place? Lack of education, so then educate. Might be because they're bored. It's a coping mechanism. It could be learnt behaviour. So thinking about the way I got brought up, drugs was normalised. Someone was saying to me when I was at school, like, not everyone takes drugs, And I was like, hi, Alec.
So welcome to the What's Going On show.
Amazing, thank you.
No, thank you for being a guest. I'm really excited for
I'm
this
so excited.
So, cool. So the What's Going On show, the show where we shine the light on people doing things in communities. And you are doing something. So we'll get into that. So a little tradition I've got on this show is, instead of me giving you an introduction, I like to give it over to you.
Oh, do you?
So
Okay.
who in a nutshell is Stacey?
Oh, how long we got? Who am I? So, born and bred in the New Forest in Hampshire, but lived in Australia, travelled the world many times. That is one of my passions, as well as just making a difference and empowering awesome people to be even more awesome, basically. I'd say that is it in a nutshell.
Very nice. Okay, cool. So, let's take us back then. So you said you grew up in the New Forest. Whereabouts?
In good old Barton-on-Sea, by the sea, which I love now, and I still live there to this day because I just think it's just like the sea is a bit of my serenity and my sort of retreat place and my happy place, really. I grew up with my mum and dad. Mum and dad are awesome. They're a little bit on the soft side, as I'll probably tell you a bit later, and my brother, who unfortunately is not doing good in the community, but we can't all be awesome, can we? So grew up with them, and great parents, complicated family, but good parents overall.
Okay, cool. So, childhood then, how was school? How was that for you?
Oh, a bit wild, to be honest with you. I think we all probably rebel at some point, don't we? And I definitely had my wilder years, like 13, 14, 15. But in a good way, I got it out of my system by the time I went to college and then did well, But school was a lot of fights because my family were fighters and I was encouraged to fight, which is quite mad, really. When I think about it now, growing up, I think, God, if I had a kid, would I encourage them to fight? No, I'd encourage them to stick up themselves, but not to fight. And I just had to carry on that family tradition of being, really badass, a bit of crime, drugs, all that sort of stuff. And that was quite normal to me, to be honest with you. But when I think about it now, I was probably one of the wildest kids in my whole year. Yeah, but I was quite nice with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I was nice with it.
So getting into fights, family tradition, drugs.
Yeah.
Just dig in a bit.
I know. Trying to think the first time I ever took drugs. Probably with family members, to be honest. I think as well, when growing up, it's like if that's your world, then it's very normal, very normal to get really wasted all the time and people to be in and out of the criminal justice system. I was quite lucky. I never really got caught. I always think now with social media and stuff, I think, God, my life would be very different, I think, if there were phones around when I was a kid. But I'm 42 now, and obviously phones didn't really come around until I was like 18. So that was quite good. And it was just the classic of weed, smoking, like amphetamine was really, really common then because it was cheap. And again, looking back, I think, why did I choose those particular things? I liked getting wasted, but I also liked not eating. I had lots of eating issues, but again, you don't recognise that as a young person. And speed, it gets rid of your appetite. but it's really bad for your mental health. I mean, the come downs I had off that were pretty vile. And then what comes into that is your party drugs, you know? And then I had a little bit of a break from drugs. I had some bad experiences, like I had a few friends die from drugs. I'd seen people overdose in front of me. I'd almost overdosed. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to have a little break. And then when you have a break, it turns into a longer break. And then you think, actually, is this really what I want? You know, and I dabbled a little bit after that, but nothing major compared to what it was like when I was at school.
Really? So
yeah.
That crossroads, if you will, when you saw your mates overdose, how old were you about?
I think I was about 17, so quite young. Yeah, I had a few friends die when I was about 17. And it all came from weed, which, you know, people always think, weed's nothing. But to me, kids always say to me, like young people in school, what's the worst drug? And it really depends on what you're looking at. And being, just in my opinion, I think weed is one of the worst ones for your mental health, especially now with the levels of THC in it, which is your tetrahydrocannabinol oil, which is your psychoactive element of the plant. And it's so much stronger now. You know, it's like 7% THC when I was at school, but now it's like 25, 30%. You know, it's all these like added things to it. You know, it's not just a bit of weed now, it's gummies, and like, you know, the market is just blown up, isn't it? Probably because of what's going on around the world. And I just think one of my best friends killed himself because he got schizophrenia, which stemmed from weed. And obviously there was lots of underlying stuff with that as well. But take the weed away, would that have happened? Probably not. Add some really cool education to us at school about how to look out for a friend with drugs, mental health. Could that have prevented it? Maybe. But we didn't have that. And I think that things like that really stem what I want to do now with young people, and just get them to recognise signs and recognise that actually their voice matters, and they can play a really cool factor in helping the world, you know, especially when you're a friend, you're more likely to listen to your mate than some random like me that goes into school for like a 1 hour lesson as a one-off, you know. So I just think, you know, knowledge is power. Yeah, I do think that anyway. That's just what I think, but yeah.
No, fair enough. So, cool, you're 17 when that happened, and then from there, you said you dabbled after, but you sort of went down straight and narrow, if you will.
Kind of, yeah. I liked alcohol, though.
Yeah.
I did like drinking.
Oh, fair. So did you sort of transfer the addictions that you had, or the uses that you had with the drugs, to alcohol, or was it just like alcohol was just part of the drug?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's what's going around you at the time. So by the time I got to university, drugs weren't really a huge thing. You know, bearing in mind I went to uni, a good 20 years ago, alcohol was massive on that scene. Whereas obviously you look now, alcohol in young people, like a third of young people now are teetotal, which is mad. Whereas like when I was at uni, it was like with all the sororities and all the groups, society groups and stuff like that, it was all about drinking. But weirdly enough, I wasn't a typical student because, you know, like everyone likes to go out on their party days. I used to do a bit of that, but I was more of a workaholic. So I drunk so, you know, like I say a typical student back then, try not to be judgmental, but a typical student would be like pre-drinks, go to the pub, pound a pint or whatever, and you know, typical student nights. Whereas for me, I would drink, like I would work from 8 till 8, then be really, really like my brain's just going mad. So I would down a bottle of wine to pass out so I could sleep and stop thinking. So I was like a different type of drinker. Now I know what I know with sleep and alcohol, it actually doesn't make you sleep well at all. It messes up with your REM, which is what we need to process stuff from the day. And I just think, God, again, if I knew that, I wouldn't have drunk a bottle of wine. And I educate, not again, knowledge power again. I just think so many people drink, don't they, to relax, to help them sleep. And yes, like I love a wine still, but I don't have a bottle because I want to have a good quality of sleep. And I want to have a good quality of different stages of sleep, including REM, which is really important to process. stress from your day.
Interesting. So so I'm getting from that sleep's quite important.
Yeah, it's probably my priority of every day, which sounds bonkers. But if you look at like what's really good for your well-being, it's quite straightforward stuff. So like I prioritise like exercise, nutrition and sleep. They're my 3 things. And probably like connection actually as well. Like seeing my mum, I can't really well my mum. Seeing the sea, little things. I always think everyone should have a little happy plan or a keep sane plan, but I might get told off when I say the word keep sane because people might get a bit offended, but that in my eyes is what we should call it.
Why would they get offended? Sorry, why?
Oh, people are very PC nowadays, aren't they? Don't you think? I think sometimes you have to be a bit careful what you say. And I don't like that. I just think as long as the intention is not to hurt, get over it. Do you know what I mean? I just think I often say things and people get a bit offended. And I just think, don't be offended unless like my intention was to maliciously hurt you. It's not. I'm just sometimes a bit ditzy and I don't always think. And I'm not always politically correct. Sorry. Let it go.
Nice.
Basically.
No, fair enough.
In a nutshell.
Okay, so that's why sleep's important to you.
Yeah, sleep. Honestly, when I've just read a really cool book, like Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, banging book. And I teach a bit about sleep as well. And again, looking at, for example, why young people's mental health issues are on the rise, yeah? One big reason for that is because of smartphones and because of sleep, right? And there was a really cool study done on Channel 4 recently. I watched it the other day. It was really, really good. And it was with Emma and Matt Willis, famous people, decided to take phones off. And they did a really cool study in Essex with some group of Year 8 students. And they found within 3 weeks, everyone's mental health increased. Their sleep, they got an hour more sleep every night. That's just from 3 weeks. And their concentration better was in school. They were connecting with their friends more in school. And that's just a couple of things. Imagine if they did that for longer, you know? I often turn my phone off at weekends because I just think, actually, it's really empowering that no one get hold of me. Do you know what I mean? If they want to get hold of me, they can knock on my door. Do you know what I mean? Or call my house phone. Do you know what I mean? You know, like it's lovely. And so I just think it's really powerful. It helps your immune system. You know, if you've got a cold, go to bed, get some early nights. Your cold will go a lot quicker than it would be if you weren't getting enough sleep. So it helps with mental health, physical health, helps with everything. Yeah, look into it. It's amazing.
Nice. Okay, cool. So really, well, you weren't sleeping well through uni. So
no.
Cool. But then where did you go from uni then? How was uni?
What did I do at uni? So I did a criminal justice studies with psychology degree.
Nice.
Loved it. And while I was there, I did lots of voluntary work because I think when you finish uni, you're like, oh, you know, I'll get a job because I've got a degree. No, it doesn't quite work like that. You need experience. And when you're 21, 22, how are you going to get experience? So I really loved the drugs world because of my personal experience and my family. So I worked in Boscombe near Bournemouth, doing lots of work with like the homeless, recovering, well, I say recovery, they weren't all recovering drug users, but people that needed like clean equipment, like needle exchange stuff, like clean like needles and things like that. But that really scared me at 22. I was like, whoa, because I've seen bits of that world growing up, but not loads. And I just thought, I felt too young because they don't take you seriously. If someone's been using drugs for 20, 30 years and you're fresh out of uni, it doesn't really work. And I just thought maybe I need to work with young people that are just not that much younger than me. And I did, and it was just so refreshing. Like, I think when you're young, you're very honest and you're so impressionable. And I just wanted to be there as helping young people get off drugs, but also like just guide them in the right direction. And that's really what young people need. I feel like everyone needs, don't we? Especially when you're young, you're going to do what you're going to do. But if you've got a few really cool, like adult influences that can just guide you on the right path, then happy days. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I think that's really cool. And it's not rocket science stuff. So yeah, I did that for a while and then went travelling, came back, did it again, came back, did it again. So I did that on and off, and then as I was 26, 27, that's when I worked with adults, again, just to try it out, and did a lot of work with like voluntary work again, because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. You know, when you're like, you've got an idea, and voluntary work is amazing, and I still do bits of voluntary work now. I host tea parties at my house for the elderly. You know, I do all sorts of bits because it's important to give back. It's important to just do good, because I always think kindness, if we all did it, the world, that ripple effect of lushness would be so powerful, even if it's just something little, you know, like you leave a car park and you've got 2 hours left on your ticket, we'll go put up. Do you know what I mean? Like, just very little things. If we all did that, the world would be lush, wouldn't it? Don't you think?
No, I get it. Would you think, or would you say that people care less now than they did before?
Oh. I think people are very busy. And one thing I was hoping would be lasting from COVID, because I do think COVID helped people get that community back and that kindness back. I really hoped it would stay. I do feel like we've just gone back a little bit. I feel like a bit of the kindness is still there. I feel like people are just very busy and entrenched in their own lives, you know, and probably don't realise the powerfulness of it all. Because when people say like acts of kindness, or when I talk about, I try and teach people about the power of gratitude, people look at me like I'm just this woo-woo, oh, check her out, being all hippie-fied. Kindness and gratitude. It actually helps rewire the brain, actually, to be like, get those neural pathways, like, you know, really powerful. And the more you do it, the more you want to do it, the more then you tell other people to do it. And again, it's that ripple effect. So I think people just aren't aware of how powerful it can be.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, we can't have another COVID, but like, what could people do to get more gratitude?
Oh, so it's like any kind of habit, it doesn't happen overnight. So it's about like just maybe giving yourself a challenge, because sometimes when you say to someone, right, you're going to practice gratitude for the rest of your life, you'd be like, what? Like, I don't think so. Whereas if you say with young people, for example, you could say, right, let's do the gratitude challenge week, right? Make it a bit fun. You can even get a competition out of it. Who's got the most random thing, or who come up with the most ideas or the wackiest ideas. And I always think, just give yourself like a short-term goal. So, and share it with peers as well. So it could be, so the best way to practice gratitude is normally at night before you go to bed. Helps you sleep better as well. Yeah, it does, yeah. Because you're thinking more positive, you know. And I do it every night. I do it in the morning and I do it at night. I do it all the time when I drive. And it just makes me feel like I'm being programmed to look out for more things. And even when in the day, it's like as soon as I met you, you had a really good aura. And straight away in my head, I was like, that's going to be on one of my gratitude lists for later. Because I was so grateful, because actually you don't know who you're going to meet sometimes. You don't know if you're going to vibe off them. That's not always a guarantee. So now, because I've been doing it a long time, in the day when I see things or things happen, I think, oh, I'm going to bank that for later. And I don't think of just 3 things now, which is what I did at the beginning. I think of like 20. And they're little things, you know, just little things like, I don't know, I did lunch, but I made it last night, didn't have to get up early to make it, you know, like just silly little things really. But those little things can be big things. So I think trying to get people to get those good happiness habits, it's about just testing it out and potentially doing it with someone else as well. You know, it's a bit like anything like with the gym. You know, if you buddy up with someone, if you have accountability partner, whatever habit you're trying to get in your life, there's little things you could do, like, you know, make sure it's in your diary every day, you know, have a vision board to, you know, widen all of that, you know, whatever it is.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's a few ideas off the top of my head.
Interesting. So, okay, cool. So, went travelling. What was seeing the world like? How did that influence your work?
Really good, and I still love it now. I think the self-employment world is quite interesting, and people always say, like, Is it really for you? Do you earn what you did 10 years ago working with corporate? No, but it depends on what you value. One of my top values is freedom. I absolutely love it. I'm not very good with authority, never been very good with authority since I was a child. And I just love the thought that I could book a flight tomorrow and just be wherever. And a lot of my work's online now as well. I just find it freeing, and I just love the spontaneity of it all. I love meeting people from all walks of life, and that's never really changed. So even probably the last sort of 10 years, even though I don't do a year away now, every year I normally go away for a good month, and I do a one-way ticket. Yeah, one-way, and that's what I did last year. I went to Malaysia. I think I'm going to do more Central America this year, like Costa Rica. And I actually think of ideas for work more when I'm abroad, because I feel more creative, you know, like on a beach, like just about to go diving for the first time. I remember thinking of an idea for Cards for Humanity, but for my work, and think of like random, like drugs ed and sex ed and mental health random questions, but like a Cards for Humanity type game. And I was thinking, oh my God, and I'm writing down ideas, or I might think of it on a bus. And I think it's, I just, the creative juices are flowing more when you're away. Maybe because it's the lack of pressure as well. I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
Well, you think of more ideas when there's no pressure.
Yeah. And I think also when you're meeting people, like I love looking at trends that's going on. And I remember about a year ago, where was I? I can't remember. I think it was Malaysia. And I met someone who was talking to me about nicotine pouches. And I was like, whoa, what's that about? You know, now they're huge. And she was like, you need to look into that. And I was like, I said, have you tried them? And she was telling me all about her experience. So I got a bit of an idea of, you know, why would someone take it? Do I think it's going to be a big thing with young people? Which it is, I think, and it will be. You know, replacing vapes, because vapes are detectable in school, aren't they? Nicotine pouches aren't, you know, little things like that.
The little things they put in the mouth, or
like
snooze, or...
Yeah, snuzz. Yeah, because schools are so hot on vaping now, which they should be, because obviously when you vape, it's like big, you know, it's like, it's like Puff the Magic Dragon, isn't it? It's just like, it's quite hard to get rid of. So actually, they've now got a nicotine addiction. So they're now going, well, actually, okay, I'm going to get in trouble if I go to the toilet, but they're not going to know if I've got like a little pouch in my mouth. But the problem with that is then they can do that all day, can't they? Meaning their addiction to nicotine and their tolerance is going to get quite high. Then schools are going to get into banning them. And then where does that leave that young person? Really addicted to nicotine, probably climbing the walls, and probably not a lot of support available. That's my guess anyway, but yeah. I'm always trying to predict the future of trends.
Yeah, no, I get it. Nicotine in itself is the most...
Honestly, I've been an on-off smoker since I was about 12. And even when I was really young, because your chance of being a smoker is hugely increased if it's in your family. So, and it's the same with drugs and all that as well, but it is definitely with smoking. And my whole family smoked then. I remember like picking up butts when I was probably 4 years old, like trying to get my mum's matches, and probably like a copying behaviour. And I was just obsessed with smoking. And even now, I haven't smoked. I probably have a couple every year, like hardly at all. But I think, God, will I ever completely knock it on the head? And I miss it, but I don't miss all the coughing and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's mad. And like people say, but you know, nicotine leaves your system after 2 days officially, like actually leaves your body, But I still get those cravings. It's probably the association, you know, like if I'm at a party and people are smoking, I'm like, oh, that looks nice. And then you got to like remove yourself from the situation and distract yourself. But yeah.
I get it.
Not easy.
I get it. Okay, cool. So come back from travelling, start working with adults. What was the difference between working with young people and adults?
Huge difference. I am a bit of a joker, like to muck about a little bit, and I found the adult community of people I was working with, they thought they couldn't deal with it. You know, they thought I was on drugs because I was like, all right, how's it going? And they're like, whoa, what have you been taking today? And I'm like, nothing. And I'd be like, and I just felt it was too serious. And also, obviously, as you get older, your issues get worse. often, especially if you carry on taking drugs and all the rest of it. And I just thought, I was trying to help these people and I wasn't really getting anywhere. And I was like, oh, I just really want to help people. Whereas I find the older you get, the harder it is to change your ways. And then your mental health issues are worse, your drug addiction's worse, your housing situation's worse, your relationships are worse. And I just think, God, where do you go with that? And often a lot of the people I was working with, they were there all the time, there was no progress. And I'm a hard taskmaster. I'm like, help yourself. Like, if you're not going to help yourself, I haven't got time for you. And that doesn't work in that world. You have to help people regardless. Whereas I'm a bit hard. I'm like, I need to see some motivation here. If you're not giving me any, then what am I supposed to do? Like, I'm not a mug. I'm here to help you. Let's sort it out. And I'm a bit too harsh. But that's the way I think you should be. But again, that's just me.
I hear it. So, like, in that then, do you think there's an age or like a cut-off point that people just become really dependent and hard to change?
That is a good question. Is there a specific age? No, I don't think so. I think anyone over 25, I'd say it's harder. I think, especially if you think about the brain, so the brain doesn't fully develop until you're 25. So before then, your brain is getting wired up and, you know, all these pathways are happening and getting hopefully connected. So you're a bit more impressionable under 25, I think. And also, I think under 25, you really are figuring out who you are. You still can do that as you're older, but so much more when you're younger, I think. So I think as soon as you become a proper adult over 25, it's harder to sort it out. It's not impossible. It's just a lot easier when you're younger, I think. You don't have so many commitments and stuff like that. You're probably not a parent yet. You probably haven't got like a really serious job. You're probably still living at home. You know, it's slightly easier, I think.
Okay. Interesting. Fair enough.
Yeah.
So, like, okay, cool. So we're on the journey then. So you're working with older people and then you packed it on the head, knocked it on the head, or you just...
Yeah, well, my contract naturally came to an end.
Okay.
And it was quite good because I got lots of experience in that field, working in like prisons and working with quite hardcore people that were like, you know, into a lot of crime. I was doing, I volunteered to work with like PPOs, which is your prolific and priority offenders. So a lot of crime that's committed is committed by like prolific offenders that are basically, it's like their job, you know. And because of my criminology degree, I was like, oh, I'm going to volunteer. So I did lots of voluntary work like that to get more experience so I could go up the ranks. Because that's what you need for your CV, especially when you're younger. And then I was just like, God, you know, this is hardcore. I want to do more prevention. Job naturally came to an end. So then I got a job working with young people on alcohol. But wasn't alcohol treatment, it was alcohol education. So like young people weren't coming to me with alcohol issues. My job was to educate young people about the consequences of binge drinking, which was awesome. So I had quite a lot of free reign. It was like, right, what are the consequences? Well, getting into fights, being spiked, putting on weight, the anxiety, beer fear. And so I could go any direction I want. So I'd create a lot of like lesson plans. I had about 50 young people volunteered for me, met them out and about. And I'd be like, oh, you should work with me voluntarily. Like, I'll pay you pizza. And they used to come to me after school and we would like work on lesson plans and resources together. And it was great, you know, giving them a voice. And I didn't have to do that. It just naturally happened where I kept meeting young people out and about and they were engaging with me. And I thought, I want to give them a little purpose. And they're like, oh, what are you doing with education around, you know, alcohol? And I'm like, what do you think I should do? You know, and we designed DVDs at the time. You know, we designed poster campaigns. We worked with an amazing company called Fixers and created our own video and resource pack around the warning signs of domestic abuse. Like, we did loads of lush stuff. Yeah, it was very empowering. It was nice to have free reign to do whatever and not hard hitting, you know, drink and you'll get, you know, liver failure. Yeah. Because again, boring doesn't work. Those messages don't work with adults, they don't work with young people.
Interesting. What's it like to work in prisons and what's substance misuse like in prisons?
Oh, it's happening. Well, it's interesting because you think, oh, what's the drug of choice is going to be in prison? I mean, it's definitely, landscape's changed a little bit now because of like synthetic, like cannabis or synthetic cannabinoids, like spice. Because that didn't exist like 20 odd years ago when I was doing the job. It was more heroin, really, because heroin, when you get drug tested, it's out your system in a couple of days. So people weren't smoking weed because weed stays in your system for up to a month. So it's like, okay, so what are we going to take drugs? Should we take weed or should we do heroin that's going to be out your system in a couple of days, and which is bonus when you're getting drug tested, you know? And actually being in prison is hard work. So like taking something like heroin, it just makes the whole day just a bit easier, you know? But then it's like, how are they going to fund that, you know? So yeah, I think prisons are like the university of crime. You're going in there and it's like business networking, isn't it? And actually a lot of crime is business orientated, you know? Isn't it? Drug dealing, like you got to have some skills, business skills, you know? So yeah, it wasn't for me. They try and get me recruited and work for them, and yeah. You know, a lot of them would get unhealthy obsessions with me because I was a female. I couldn't have looked like anyone, do you know what I mean? But I was like mid-20s, you know. Yeah, just wasn't good. So I was just like, oh, this is not for me. I didn't feel like many people were genuine, you know, and I'm not very good with people that aren't genuine. Basically.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, cool. So that was prisons. Okay, back to the young people drinking. So, what is binge drinking then?
Binge drinking. Well, in the eyes of the government, it's like 6 units a night, you know, which is like a couple of large glasses of wine. In a nutshell, that's the real broad term, but it's not a lot. Whereas binge drinking for me is like you're drunk. Do you know what I mean? You know, and that's not good because that's going to be increasing all your problems with your health and stuff like that. But it's not really just your health. And those messages, I had to be really clear about my messages, because looking at what works in education around, you know, drugs or alcohol, it's not really about your health. You know, if someone said to you, don't drink wine every day because you're going to probably like have lots of different cancers when you're, you know, 40 years time. You really going to care about that? No. But you will care about putting on weight. You will care about being paranoid the next day because you think you might have said something you shouldn't have done, or maybe done something you shouldn't have done, like, you know, unsafe sex, or sleeping with someone you didn't really want to sleep with, or getting into a fight or whatever. So it's those kind of short-term consequences that are better than the long-term stuff.
Okay, that's what works for young people.
Well, and adults. Yeah. Oh, for sure. Like if you said to me now, like, you know, I love smoking, trying to, you know, finding it really hard to give up. If I said to you, yeah, but you could get lung cancer like in 30 years' time, you'd probably be like, yeah, maybe. Whereas if I said to you, yeah, but you know, your breath is going to smell when you meet, like when you go on a date with someone, they're going to smell it and they might be a bit like, ew. You'll be like, oh, I don't want someone to think my breath might stink. Do you know what I mean? Because that's more of a short-term thing. So it's little things like that.
Interesting. Well, that makes sense.
It does.
Okay, cool. So, did the alcohol campaigns.
Yeah.
Where did that lead you then? Where did that take you from?
Got made redundant again, and that was fine. They were so lovely. They were like, oh, you know, we love you working here, but, you know, money's getting less. And I was like, oh, can you not keep me on for like one more year, but maybe part-time, you know? And they're like, well, we'll see. And, you know, I was only supposed to work there for a year, and I worked there for 7.
Wow.
I know. But I was full-time, and then my hours went down every year. But that was banging, because I'm like, right there, what shall I do on the side? Just test the waters out. And it was them. They said to me, why don't you set up your own thing? And I was like, yeah, I could do. Didn't really know what direction to do, because like what you do at the beginning is normally a lot different. You know, I've had my own business now for like 13 years, so it is different. Because you just got to like, you know, ride the wave, go with what the world wants you to do, but also you've got to stay authentic to that as well. So yeah, that's why I did that. So I did it for maybe 7 years with the 2 jobs, and then went off and did my own thing.
How is it first step out into the open by yourself?
I think people always say to me like, oh, can I take you for coffee and ask you for advice about self-employment? I get that all the time. And I genuinely don't mind, because I wish someone did that for me. No one did. Maybe I didn't ask. Probably didn't meet that many people that were self-employed back then either. But now I'm like, yeah, 100%, like for sure, pick my brains, because I made a lot of mistakes, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Mistakes are good. There are lots of things I'd done and I just think, oh, why did I even bother? It took too long. So I think self-employment is great because I did it alongside part-time work. You know, I don't normally say to people, just quit your job and start your business straight away, because no one normally makes money for the first couple of years. I think most businesses fail after 2 years. There's like a statistic around that, isn't there? So yeah, and that's because it takes a little while to build up.
It does.
It does.
It really does. Okay, so then on your business then, so what does your business now focus on?
So mainly, I don't do just one little thing, and a lot of people might criticise that and say, oh, you're not niche enough. But again, being authentic is really important, and I get bored. So if I just did drugs training, which is one part of what I do, if I did that every day, I would be bored, even though I find drugs fascinating, you know? So I've written about a good 50 training courses, which is quite a lot, probably too much. So that could be drugs, but then it could be a bit more niche and go into like just cannabis or just ketamine or MDMA, like a bit more specific. Drug trends, I love doing that type of training because that changes because of the landscape of nicotines and pink cocaine or whatever's happening at the moment. Fascinating stuff. And then the wellbeing side, and this is way before COVID, like obviously mental health first aid is huge. And that's great to a point, but what else? It's not like just a tick box. Like we should be having education around well-being like every week, same in schools. It shouldn't be just like a drop-down day, right, today you're going to get taught about mental health. It should be all the time, you know, and it shouldn't be just about mental health in general or drugs in general. It should be about being safe when you're out, you know, how can you look out for your friends, tips on sleep, how to get a better diet, and actually how does that relate to mood, because it does massively. Brain health, I went on a brain health course recently and I was like, wow, fascinating. So I'm already thinking about preventing dementia and stuff like that. And it's fascinating, you know, like menopause stuff, like there's so many different things. So I forgot your original question, but I just probably went on one. But yeah, training, education with young people and conferences. I love running events. I've done about 20 events, so I'm going to do more of them now because I love getting everyone together. I love getting people to work together and find out what's out there, because thinking about the gratitude thing, we're very lucky in this country. People are very like, oh, England's so rubbish. No, we're not. Like, I read the other day that about 50% of Americans don't even have sex ed, right? That's mandatory in this country, right? So and that's America. What's going on in India or Nepal or Malaysia? Do you know what I mean? I just think, hello, we should stop moaning and be grateful, because things could always be a lot worse. So yeah, training, education, conferences, and then I've designed a lot of resources. Like I've got these little happy kits and things like that young people have helped me design. And that's a bit of passive income for me on my website. Make money while I sleep.
Yeah.
That's the goal. That's the goal.
That is the goal. That is the goal. Yeah. Okay, fascinating. So, just on that then, drug trends. I'm interested in that. So, what have you found out, and what can you tell us?
Oh, I'll tell you what's really interesting. So, I love festivals. I love raving. I'm massively into my dance music, drum and bass, stuff like that. What comes of that? Yeah. Not always, but is drugs. And so I am almost like a bit of a mystery shopper when I go out, because I love meeting randoms, you know, I love going out in the smoking area, taking a bit of time out to chill, talking to people and finding out what they're up to, what's their motivation. Massive trend at the moment is the reduction of alcohol, which I find really fascinating. However, when you think about why that is, so last year I went to both festivals. It was the first time I'd been to festivals and I didn't have to queue at the bar. And I was like, what's going on here? Because people will be taking something. And it's the rise of ketamine. Ketamine is absolutely massive because it's affordable and there's so different levels of it. So you can almost like microdose it, and it can like reduce like anxiety, your inhibitions like alcohol, because it is a depressant drug. Can make maybe a slight mild hallucinogen. So like colours, especially if you're at a festival and like, you want to feel more relaxed, but you don't want to like go overboard. but you want to heighten your experience. Ketamine could do that because it's going to make those colours a bit more vivid, the sounds a bit more like you're going to hear beats a bit more, you know? It's going to reduce your inhibitions and relax you, like alcohol, right? But it's obviously a bit of a hallucinogen in there as well. So that I think is interesting, and I think is sadly going to be on the increase for sure, because there's so you could do microdose it, then you can get well into it, and then obviously, but it's hard to dose on ketamine, just putting that out there, and then you could go, you know, balls deep and be like in the old K-hole and don't know what's going on. So yeah, they're talking about reclassifying ketamine to class A, and I hope they don't, because I just think this whole like the law on drugs, we're very hard in this country, and actually when you look at the law, does it really help the situation? And it really doesn't. So I keep hearing at the moment like people saying, oh, my child died from ketamine, we need to make it a class A. And I get they've come from a moment of like absolute raw emotion there, and that is obviously awful, but they are not an expert on drugs, and actually giving someone a class A penalty could chuck them in prison for like having a little bag of ketamine on them. Then they're going to mix with other people in prison, and then once you're in prison it's quite hard to leave, you know. So actually that, to me, from a criminal justice point of view, it widens that net, you know, because actually someone in that situation, you know, people don't take drugs all the time. Most people take drugs recreationally, so they just do it now and again. Should we be punishing people like that? I mean, we could punish people in a different way, go get them education, maybe put a conditional caution in place and say, right, you know, you're not going to get completely off, but maybe you need to go speak to a drugs recovery worker and get some education around it. You know, and that's mandatory, otherwise you will get a community order or whatever. That is all right, because that's education, isn't it? So trends-wise, definitely got the ketamine increase. I do think drugs are being marketed to look a bit like vapes. When you look at them, they're marketed to children, aren't they? They've got these mad flavours. There are lots of pretty colours, and I think, you know, looking at ecstasy pills in the last few years, they've changed a lot. They used to be just round with maybe a little logo on. They now are like shaped like teddy bears. They're now bigger as well. So a recent trend at the moment is like bigger pills, which people think, oh, that's just going to be what I would normally have. But actually a bigger pill means more ecstasy. So they could say break it in half, take half. Well, actually they're taking a whole one. You know, if you think about it, you've got like pink cocaine, which is like a mix of like coke, ecstasy, you know, and all those drugs, they're not all just stimulant drugs. So like pink cocaine, it's got ketamine and ecstasy. Well, ketamine's the downer, ecstasy's an upper. So you chuck that into your body and it's like, whoa, what is going on? Do you know what I mean? And that can increase your chances of overdose and all the rest of it. But even though you don't really know what's in your drug, ever. And I always say to people, I have to be careful how I say this, because people might be like, oh, you're encouraging drug use. But drug-related deaths are like at an all-time high, right? One brilliant way to sort that out is to what I call test dose. So say like you like taking cocaine every payday, right? Which is sometimes people do. Before you go out and smash out your cake, take a little bit in the week, just a little bit, to test it, to see what it's like. Don't put it on your gums and think it's amazing, because that could be Novocaine, which is a placebo, which is what dentists use to numb your mouth. It's not going to get you high, right? Actually, do a little line, not a massive one, little one, because it's a boorish drug. You'd be like, yeah, I'm going to get on it now. Do a little line, test it, see how you feel, because that's the same with ecstasy as well, because ecstasy tablets really vary in strength. Ket really varies in strength, you know. So I would always say test dose, and then be mindful the environment as well. So say I took a little line of coke at home, felt absolutely fine, and I did that same line of coke at a festival. The festival will heighten my experience more because of the environment, so I'll feel it more. So it's always to bear that environment factor in. Yeah, I've seen people really mess up on drugs because they're like, I did it like last weekend at home and I was fine. And I'm like, yeah, because at home you're safe.
Yeah.
or safer. Not safer. So yeah, environment is really, really key. So I just think, and there's lots of like synthetic like opioids now, like nicotine, fentanyl. So they're being mixed with like heroin predominantly. So it's not too much in the party scene yet. But again, that is dangerous as you like, because, for example, fentanyl is 100 times stronger than heroin. If that's added to heroin, you're a goner, basically. So what's that going to do to the drug market? Especially if, like, I don't know, you're just like a seasonal cocaine user and there's some nicotine in your coke and you only do it at festivals, you're just going to, like, trust that process. And again, you're going to end up dead, basically. Not you're going to end up in hospital, you're going to end up dead because it's that strong. So I do think we've got to be a bit mindful of that, and hopefully there'll be some lovely education out there around that, and hopefully I'll help.
Wow, so it's on the rise. Oh my god.
Yeah, bits of it is. I mean, drug taking in general, it's not, most people, are not into drugs. Do you know what I mean? It's something like 10% of the population have ever tried them, so it's not like a crazy amount, but it's a significant amount because of the repercussions of it. Some people, again, not all, because it's a Russian roulette, some people will get addicted. Some people will end up getting really depressed over it. Some people might even get really violent over it. There's lots of different things that can happen as a result of taking drugs. Some have nothing, some may have bigger things. So, Russian roulette, I call it. Never know what you get.
Wow. 2 questions. So what's nicotine?
So nicotine is a synthetic opioid. So basically, drugs are either natural, so like in the forest, like a plant, or they are synthetic, which means they're man-made in a lab, like Breaking Bad type style. So like your crystal meth. The nicotine is a little bit like heroin, but synthetic, made in a lab, and loads more stronger. Yeah.
And okay, second question is, what is the most alarming thing that you've heard come through with the amount of drugs someone's been using?
Oh God, probably heroin. I think I've worked. So when I used to be a drugs recovery worker, you'll get people come in because they are either forced to, because the criminal justice system tells them that they have to, because they've been caught, or they've come in for a slightly different service, but because they actually want help. I would say 90% are heroin users, which is quite interesting. And I think that's how treatment services are set up. They're predominantly for your crack and your heroin and quite hardcore. Like when I think about friends that I've helped off drugs, that's been like cocaine. And I'm like, go to your treatment service, because we have them for free all over the country. And they're like, no way, that's where like your hardcore addicts are. And I'm like, yeah, but you're snorting 5 grams of coke every day. And that's like £500, and you're driving to school to pick up your kids. So, you're drinking some wine, and wine and alcohol together makes cocaethylene. So then that stays in your system for longer. So effectively, you're constantly over the limit when you're driving. It's affecting your relationship. Normally domestic abuse is quite common with that kind of stuff. I'm like, so yeah, I think you should go and access treatment services. And they're like, really? But it's geared towards more heroin, alcohol, crack cocaine, which it is a bit, if I'm honest, even though it should be, they are inclusive officially. But if I went in there now, I know that most people in there would be heroin. People taking heroin, it's like, people take heroin, they don't typically recreationally use, they're using it every day, all day, every day. So that's, quite a habit, and lots of money and lots of crime associated with that. And then lots of health problems associated with that. If you're injecting, you're eventually going to run out of veins. Then where do you inject? You can inject in your groin, you can inject in your foot, running out of veins still. I worked with, I helped my cousin years ago, started injecting in his eye. Because we ran out of veins. He was injecting his butt, and then of course when you inject your eye, you're going to go a bit blind, aren't you? So then he went blind, so yeah. And also thinking about where it actually gets you more is the optic nerve behind the eye. Bit like, you remember Eyeball Paul? Eyeball Paul, he's on Kevin and Perry Go Large film.
Yeah.
And he takes his vodka shot, so he puts it in his eye. And it's because, not that I'm promoting any ideas here, but it's the optic nerve behind your eye, goes straight to the brain. So yeah, my cousin ended up injecting in his eye, only in one eye, thank God, so you can see out the other one. I know. So yeah, I've seen some pretty hardcore stuff, like people like trying to still like snort drugs and like bits of their nose is falling out, then they're having a seizure, then they're coming around, waking up, and then they're like, right, let's get back to it. And it's like, you've just had a seizure, mate. Like, let's just chill for a bit. Yeah, I've helped a lot of people professionally, but I've helped a lot of, not so much family, because my family haven't wanted any help from me, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, a lot of friends, and friends, sort of brothers or friends, cousins or whatever. I've done that just to help, because a lot of people, they don't just wake up one day and think, oh, I'm going to go and get help. Do you know what I mean? They speak to their brother or whatever, and then they can always come to me and go, oh my God, you need to help me. And I just think, why not? You know, because it could be their little stepping stone to sorting it out. Yeah. I know, it's quite crazy.
Yeah. Wow. So okay, so that's what's happening. So cool. That's you basically current day. So current day. So cool. Where do you see yourself? Do you plan? I always ask this.
Not as much as I should. I'm doing like a business growth program at the moment, because I'm always like, I don't want to ever become complacent, and I love learning for my personal and professional growth. And they're like, right, what's your 10-year strategy? And I was like, what? Like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't know. They're like, what's your strategy for this year? And I'm like, I don't know. I've planned enough work till September at the moment, and that's it. And I should probably plan a little bit more. I think for sure as I'm getting older, I'm trying to work smarter, not harder. Because when you're younger, you got like the hunger and the energy to work 12-hour days, and I don't now. I still work quite a bit, but I also am really good at listening to my body and thinking, actually today I need a rest day or whatever. And that's the power of being self-employed. I love that. I think for me it's about growing my passive income. So I've got like 12 webinars on my website, and I've got about 50 resources on my website. So I've got like a shop, which sounds a bit official, but I suppose it is. And I make a few sales off that every month, and I need to work more with people that are really good at marketing to help drive traffic to the website and all that stuff I'm not very good at. Because I just think, you know, it's good to work hard in life, but actually you don't want to work yourself so hard that you get really exhausted and you get ill. And there's more to life than just working, you know. And I just think, God, if I could make a bit of money while I sleep, people are like, oh, that's easy money. And it's like, well, it's not, because I've had to like create those webinars. I've had to write them, which I did actually while I was in Malaysia. I wrote them all while I was away on buses. I'm like, yeah, thinking about content. Didn't film them on the bus, but I wrote them all while I was away, wrote resources to go with it, because again, the problem in my industry now and training, you could go onto YouTube and be like drug trends training, and I expect you can find something. Do you know what I mean? And it's free, you know? But actually, the quality of it, it's not live. You know, does it come with any resources to help people with their job? So like if I was a teacher, I'm like, brilliant. I could go onto YouTube, find out a bit of information, but actually, I need a lesson plan now. So if they work with me, I'm like, oh, well, if you work with me, I might give you one. So, and that saves them time. Because creating resources takes hours, you know, if not days, you know. So that's where I'm trying to do my USP part, because you've got to obviously always think outside the box, haven't you? And be one ahead of the game all the time.
Okay.
Try anyway.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah.
So, cool. So that's what you're aiming to do going forward.
Something like that, yeah. I just think like my values are my parents and freedom. And my parents, like my family, are very chaotic, and my parents are lush, and I want to look after them as they get older. And to do that, I need to have more freedom. I need to have more flexibility, because they're not going to be around forever. And I want to spend as much time with them as I can and give them a good life, because they're always working, they're always putting others first. So whatever I can do to make them feel better is what I'm going to try and do.
Amazing. Well, Stacey, that brings us to a lovely close.
Amazing.
And I'm excited to see what happens next.
Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. It's been awesome. Thank you for listening to me.
Amazing. Alright, on part 2. This part involves us going out into the public and asking a question about something around what we're talking about today.
Wow, brilliant.
So you can stop it at any time, you can wait for the end, it's up to you. It's about 2.5 minutes, and yeah, feel free.
What, loads of different questions? Or?
Just the one.
Oh,
just
okay.
the one. We used to do loads of different questions,
Yeah.
but then we found it was really hard to edit. So then we
Yeah.
thought, the one question.
Come on, then let's find out.
Then we can dig
Yeah.
in. How can we prevent substance misuse?
Oh, that's deep. I don't even know if I can answer that.
Can we prevent for like younger people, people in general?
People in general, young people, you name it.
How can we prevent substance abuse?
Yeah.
Like depiction of it in like films and stuff, maybe.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what you lot do?
We're
we
film
study
students.
film.
Yeah.
Get it, I hear it.
Yeah, I guess like that's quite a good answer. Like
Yeah.
depiction of it in like art and stuff, music as well. I guess.
Yeah, I think it still gets like glorified, maybe.
I guess it does get glorified, but then there's also like a lot of films and stuff show like the real stuff.
Yeah, I think also like it's quite easy to access for like anyone. It's not even like
Yeah.
because it's not like monitored. It's still
Yeah, I
illegal
guess.
shit like
I
that.
hear a word. How can we prevent substance misuse?
I don't know, I feel like we just need a lot more like drug awareness things around in the streets, because I feel like because you see it, people think it's normal, but it's not. It should be more not hidden, because then we need to know it's there to stop it. I don't know. Do you get what I mean or not?
How can we prevent substance misuse?
Promote it.
Promote it, how so?
I don't really know.
Interesting, fair enough. And how can we prevent substance misuse?
Give homeless people housing. Give children things to do.
Do you want to expand on that one?
Instead of them being out on the streets and just doing whatever they want to do, having like activities and places to go.
Okay. How can we prevent substance misuse?
Skateboards.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Just go skating, innit?
Yeah, if you find something distracts you, that could be anything.
That's
Skating,
what I mean.
Like anything what you enjoy. That
Healthy passion, I think that is so key, isn't it? If you think about like a lot of people that get addicted, they've got a bit of a what we call like addictive personality.
Yeah.
So when I've worked with people taking drugs, I always say to them, how can we prevent this? What would have prevented you? And sometimes they're like, I would have done this regardless. But actually a lot of the time they needed a trusted adult, doesn't have to be a parent, just someone who can be that like sort of mentor, guidance if you like. Healthy addiction. So often you find a lot of people in recovery, they go get addicted to work or they go get addicted to exercise. You know, like business entrepreneurs, like the amount of people I've worked in prison, I'm like, right, let's get your CV up together. Oh, I've got nothing to write on there. And I'm like, dude, you got skills. You're like an entrepreneur. You know, you are dedicated to this. And they're like, yeah, I've been dedicated. I'm like, so then you can plow that amazing energy into a business, you know? So yeah, getting a passion, giving young people stuff to do. Also thinking about, because I love that question, I could talk about it all day. Like, why do people get into it in the first place? Lack of education, so then educate. And also, it's a coping mechanism. Yeah. Think about why people take drugs. Often it's because to deal with trauma. It's often to deal with, like, just shite going on in their life. So then, again, educate. What other things can help people deal with that kind of stuff? And a lot of it is coping strategies. So like we could like in school, you could learn a different coping strategy every week, you know, and actually a lot of those coping strategies, for example, like knitting or music, not everyone's going to love it, but you don't need to love it all. And actually, if you can find your, what I call thing, whether it's, you know, loving sleep like me, which is a bit, or loving travel, whatever it is, you're going to be on a good path because you've got something to focus on, you know.
Interesting.
So that's. But yeah, sorry, I'm listening to that and I'm
I hear
like,
it.
I want to speak. I want to speak.
I get it. You're, this is what it's about. This
Yeah.
is what it's about.
Yeah.
Could help you, like, not like thingy.
Think about all of it, innit?
Yeah.
My whole homelessness was skateboarding.
Yeah.
It was sick.
Like, just need something to distract you.
How can we prevent substance abuse?
It's a good question. I mean, I'm not someone to dabble in that, so I haven't really thought about it too much, but just don't do it. Would be my answer.
Okay.
Not very insightful, but I'm not sure, to be honest. Don't know.
Interesting.
All right, so that was the question, yeah.
Brilliant. I think that's a really good question. I just think, and I love the fact you've just asked loads of cool people, and actually getting the voices of everyone is super important. So it's always think about why. You know, why do people do it? Might be because they're bored. It might be because they just need some fun in their life. A lot of the time, it could be learnt behaviour. So thinking about the way I got brought up, you know, drugs was normalised, and actually dispelling those myths. And when someone saying to me when I was at school, like, not everyone takes drugs, you know, and I was like, what? You know, when you go to family events and stuff, like, I remember my cousin who's now in her 20s saying to me, like, why are you not doing any drugs or drinking? Because everyone else in the family was. And I said to me, you know what, I'm going to have to sit down and we'll have a little chat about this, because I don't want her growing up the way I did, thinking, let's all take drugs, deal drugs, do lots of crime, you know, so thinking about that kind of stuff. But it's all about education, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, giving people things to do. I'm doing a nice bit of work at the moment with like the youth strategy that the government are doing at the moment, and they want to give young people a voice on what should be in there. So I'm working with young people to give them a voice. And that's really important. If you give people a voice, they're more likely to engage with what's going on, because you feel like someone actually wants to listen to you, and then make sure you act out on whatever you say you're going to do. Because you don't want people to be like, oh, the government asked for our opinion. Well, we gave our opinion and nothing happened. You know what I mean? So it's about effective communication as well, isn't it?
Well, Stacey, that brings us to a lovely close then. And again, it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure to interview yourself and find out about what you do. And I look forward to seeing what happens next.
Thank you very much for having me, Alex.
It's been great.